Hello authors, I'm Joanne Morell, children's and young adult fiction writer and author of short non-fiction for authors. Thanks for joining me for the Hybrid Author podcast, sharing interviews from industry professionals to help you forge a career as a hybrid author, both independently and traditionally publishing your books. You can get the show notes for each episode and sign up for your free author pass over at the Hybrid Author website to discover your writing process, get tips on how to publish productively, and get comfortable promoting your books at www.hybridauthor.com.au. Let's crack on with the episode. Hello, authors! I hope you're all keeping well in whatever part of the world you reside and listen to the podcast in. Today's interview is with author, entrepreneur, and public speaker Mariam Houli, chatting to us on why the best time to chase your dreams is right now. Mariam shares with us her personal and professional story on publishing her debut YA novel, The Olive Tree. She touches on self-doubt and self-worth and why we need to diminish the old ways of the past and be true to our future writing selves. This may be one of the most powerful interviews I've conducted to date, and I hope you enjoy Mariam's powerful message as much as I did. So in my author adventure this week, no writing. I'm in mum mode. My family life is full frontal at the moment, with my kids' hobbies taking centre stage before the next school holidays emerge, and it all seems to have come at once. I have been working on my author business by shopping for website designers. And I must apologise for the current state of my website. If you visited there or listened to the podcast, it's a bit of a shambles, and that's because I'm the website person, but I'm not really... I'm not very good at it. And I've had about 4 websites in my author career through various companies, Weebly, Wix, which were 100% easy to navigate. But my current WordPress site I've always struggled with, and I feel now is the time to bring in the professional web developers. So I'm super excited to have a few phone call conversations lined up next week to talk about the design and functionality of my website. So stay tuned, and I want your feedback on the new site once it's up and running. So if you love the podcast or any of the episodes has helped you further in your author career, you can now pay it forward by buying me a coffee over at www.buymeacoffee.com/thehybridauthor. Hybrid all caps and T and A from the an author. A big shout out and thank you to the first supporter to buy the Hybrid Author a coffee at buymeacoffee.com. And not just 1, but 5. So as you can imagine, after 5 coffees, I'm pinging off my nut on caffeine right now. Thanks to you, Christinita Brown, indie author of children's junior fiction, Looking for Lily, and also a Hybrid Author podcast guest for episode 36. And Christy generously shares her experience on what it takes to self-publish junior fiction. So thank you, Christy. You absolutely rock. If you haven't picked up your copy of Looking for Lily, listeners, please do so now. I think Christy is almost at the bottom barrel of her first print run. So congrats, Christy. You are absolutely killing it. And we love Looking for Lily. If you don't want to support my coffee habit, but still want to support the podcast, you can also leave me a review on whatever platform you listen to the podcast on. Just a couple of words to let me and others who write like you know how the podcast is helping further your author career. Let's all support each other. So that's enough from me. Let's crack on with the episode. Mariam Houli is a 33-year-old mother of 5. She's an entrepreneur, public speaker, and author of The Olive Tree, her debut YA fiction novel. Mariam has a love of reading, writing, and animals. What a busy and inspiring bio, Mariam. Welcome to the Hybrid Author podcast.
Hey, Joanne, thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. So where did your love of reading come from, and how did you come to join the world of writing and publishing?
Well, from a very young age, I loved reading all types of books and fiction and nonfiction, and always felt writing for me was therapeutic. I never really intended on, sharing my writing with the world, but wanted it just as a therapy and getting pen on paper. And then as time went on, I had a love for making stories and trying to touch people's hearts.
Fantastic. Yeah, I've felt the same with my kind of writing journey. The first young adult novel I ever wrote, it will never see the light of day, but I feel like it had to be written. It was more like a verbal vomit of my own upbringing, but I feel like something has released since writing it. But yeah.
Exactly. That's how you feel. Yes.
Yeah. Well, we could talk about so many things today. You're a very well-rounded person, and you're so many hats you're juggling. I can't believe a mother of five. That's insane. But we're going to talk about today
Yes. Yes.
why the best time to chase your dreams is now. So can you tell us your story and what's behind that bold statement?
I've learned as I've grown up, time is not guaranteed. No one can guarantee tomorrow. None of us. Who can be 110% sure that we're going to have a tomorrow? God forbid we can go out and have an accident and never see light. We can get sick and our health never be back. There is so many we could. So the best time is now. And COVID, I think, really, really shook me up when the pandemic hit, and we were, especially in Melbourne, we were locked up for nearly 2 years. It was horrible. My mental health was below zero, and I thought to myself, that's it. Nothing is ever guaranteed. If a pandemic can shake up a globe of billions of people, then I'm never ever going to wait or allow anyone to tell me that any of my dreams are invalid. They are 110% valid.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, as writers, when we go to put ourselves out in our writing, it can become really scary and we get a lot of fear and self-doubt. But, it sounds like any notions you might have had of these things, the pandemic has kind of put things into perspective for you. I cannot imagine what you guys went through in Melbourne. We were actually pretty lucky in Perth, a couple of lockdowns and stuff, but we were quite free for a lot of the time. And 5 children as well.
Yes. Well, that's what happens when you make all these decisions when you're very, very young. But look, having the 5 kids, I think it's not for everyone. And maybe if time would have come earlier, maybe I wouldn't have made that much, that decision that early on. But yeah. Look, everything is written for you. Everything is planned. And I think in hindsight, as you get older, you know that this was the best path for you. I think God sometimes puts us in places to open different doors. And now I'm just living my life the opposite. I had my kids very, very young. I had them at 16, my oldest, and my youngest at 27. And now I'm starting a career in so many different things. I think as humans, we judge that there's a right and a wrong. There's absolutely no right and a wrong. You can have kids at 50. You can have kids at 15. You can not have kids. Yeah. You can choose not to have children and still be very, very valid. I think we just have to be tolerant and understand that each person's choices and decisions, although may not be for you, but doesn't mean it's right or wrong.
Yeah,
I think we just have to get out of that mentality of judging people.
And do your kids actually, do they inspire you in any way for you to be chasing your dreams so you can show them, you can do that, I can do this, you can do this, and we should be doing it now kind of thing?
I always tell them, growing up, I'm the oldest out of 10 children.
Oh, wow.
And my late father, my mom was a teacher, and my father had cancer all through his youth, and he passed away at 52, leaving all the kids for my mum to raise up. And so financially we weren't really doing well. And if anything, I tell my kids, now we're in a generation of social media. Everything is possible. You don't need so much money or come from a rich family or whatever it is that was in the past to make, a future, to make a business, to write, to whatever your dreams are so possible now with the help of social media. And it's free. The majority of the time, it's free.
That's it. Yeah, no, that's incredible. And it resonates with me with what you're saying. We don't know what's coming. We don't know what's around the corner. I unfortunately lost 2 good friends this year, and one was in a freak accident, and
the first one, not so much, but the one with the freak accident was actually at that person's funeral. And what freaked me out the most was I just thought, I was talking to that person then, and who knew a couple months later we would be at your funeral. That spun me out. So I quite agree. If you don't waste time, do what you've got to do now for sure.
But I think the biggest lie, Joanne, that we've been told or sold to is, and it really upsets me especially when we tell it to our youth, to our children, to the younger generation, that, you have so much time to figure out what you want. That is not true, because nothing is guaranteed. You have to try so many different things to know what's your true calling. And if you don't try, if we cotton wool our kids or society in general now you can't even, there's no free speech anymore. People are I find overly sensitive. We're not allowed to express what we feel in anything anymore. I feel like we've really gone backwards instead of forwards. Yeah. This child or this young adult has no idea because they're afraid. We're living in fear now. Yeah. And it's so sad.
It's sort of saying something that can be taken in the wrong context, and it's well, tell us about your debut young adult novel, The Olive Tree. And Chasing Your Dreams Now. Is this one of your dreams that you thought, yep, I'm going for it?
Oh, yes. The Olive Tree I wrote maybe three and a half years ago. And as I said, every time I tell someone, and I have a literature degree. So during all these kids, I went to uni, but it took me 10 years to finish a Bachelor of Arts, and I majored in literature and composition because it was so hard. I was either pregnant or breastfeeding.
I was just going to say, you had a lot of other things as well.
But I think it was my mother. If I have anything to take, it was my mother's really pushing to, get a degree, keep it. You never know what happens. So in the 3 years, I wrote The Olive Tree. But every time I tell someone, look, I wrote this novel and I think people will be interested, everyone would tell me, no one will be interested. Who's going to read that? Who do you think you are to write a novel? No one really, other than my mother, believed that anyone would be interested. And that goes back to, again, we self-doubt. We look into other people's eyes to see our worth. We need people to appreciate us before we appreciate ourselves. And then, as I said, I finished it. And then when COVID hit and all this happened to me, it was, business wise and personally and everything, I made the decision and said to myself, look, that's it. This is going to be published, and whatever happens, happens. But previous to that, even before COVID, I had 2 offers from publishing houses overseas to buy the rights of the book. Unfortunately, I refused it. Although I needed the money, I refused it because they were going to change the story. And it was never about money for me, but it was about changing people's lives or the perspectives. And I didn't want people to have a say in which direction this book was going to go.
Yeah, well, tell us about the story.
So The Olive Tree is about a family. It's about 2 girls that live in a fake town in Palestine. One is a Muslim girl, one is a Jewish girl, and it takes you on to both of their families' lives and how fate intertwines them, and how a country shrouded by segregation and segregatory and bribery, how these 2 girls, although from different religions, although from different backgrounds, get together and try to become the change. Yeah. So there's a lot of emotion in it. It's a lot of family. It's a lot of lessons. And some of the story, although it's not a real story, I myself lived through a war when I was in Lebanon, and Israel and Lebanon got into a massive little war, and we had to be evacuated via boats to Cyprus. And I had my son and I was 16. Images like that never ever leave you. And war, the only people that pay the price in war is children. That is, unfortunately the case. Look at what's happening in Ukraine now, all over the world.
Yeah, that's it. Well, it sounds like an extremely powerful story, and one everyone should read. And I think you're probably the best person to tell it, from coming from that experience and that perspective as well. Just pedaling back on what you were saying before about self-doubt and belief, I feel, and I think a lot of people feel as writers as well, it's like we have to get someone's approval to say you are okay, your work is good enough. And again, it's probably all comes back to self-belief. Yeah, working on that. What was the process you went through writing the book? How did you find time to write your novel?
As with everything in my life, it has to be done when the kids are asleep. That's the only way I could do anything in my life, is when the children, and that's why it took many years. And the interesting thing about writing, and you would know as a writer, as you get older, your perspective changes. So in the 3.5 years, I had written, I had rewritten and rewritten, because I'd go back a year later, let's say, and start from the start, and I'd find, well, how can I believe this? No, this doesn't sound right to me. I had grown and evolved, and what I wrote back then didn't resonate with me. So I think as people in general, if you're writing a story and it's taken you that long to write, when you come back to it, you find a lot of what you wrote doesn't resonate anymore.
Yeah. And I think because people always ask, should I write every day? And there's a notion going around, you're not a writer unless you do write every day. But I think the only reason you should write every day, yeah, I agree as well. But
I don't believe that.
I think the only thing to write every day would be just to be kept connected to the story. And like you said, so your perspective is in that area, but also the great works have to be left and sat for many years and go back. And again, like you said, the perspective has changed, but the work will be in the end what it's supposed to be. So obviously your work, The Olive Tree, you've put it out there into the world, which is amazing. Have you had a good response so far?
I've had a lovely response. It went to Amazon in 3 categories. Number 1, it's gotten a lot of, publicly sales. It's in nearly every bookshop online in Australia, I think, as well. We're making it into a movie.
Oh, wow. Fantastic.
Yes, we are going to make it. I had a meeting last night with the scenarists overseas, but it's a longer process, of course. I just want to go back to a point that you said about writing every day. I don't know how it is for you, but for me, writing is emotionally draining. It's not. So I'm very surprised when I hear people say you should write every day. I have to be in a specific mental state, emotionally charged to write, especially as I write fiction with a purpose. Yeah. There's messages behind it, and I don't see how you can just write every day. You have to be it's like any art, basically. That's how I try to explain it to people. It's like you when you paint or when you draw, or you just can't just pick up a brush. You have to be in your element really to write. And the more sad I am or upset, the better my writing is. I'm
not sure, actually. But yeah, I find, like, I talk a lot about processes and stuff because I do feel there's a process to everything. I mean, even with my podcast, the process I go through before I click on the video is I go around and shut all the doors in my house, and I take a drink and I cough up a lot. And, I go to the toilet a lot. That's a process I find before I start my interviews. And I think with writing, there is a process that you get, I guess, your mind and body into to begin for some people. But what I found and what I guess is hardest about writing for a lot of people, you can learn something different from each individual person, but no individual person is the same. Their process is not the same. Their work's never going to be the same. Yes. So you have to tune into you and what works best for you in your writing, for sure.
100%. So what I learned in university, the way we're supposed to write, I don't apply that. It doesn't work for me. It's all in my brain first, and it has to be, like, as you said, vomited on the paper first, and then laptop. But I don't do the character segments. I find that doesn't work for me. But as we said, what works for you maybe doesn't work for me. Yeah. And there's no right and wrong again.
That's right. Yeah, it's just about finding your way and your voice, and you have a very strong voice, which is fantastic. So is there going to be like a sequel to The Olive Tree? Are you going to continue telling these types of stories, or
these types of stories, yes. So as I said, I write. So my purpose in writing is always going to be fiction with a purpose. There's so many messages in every book that I write. I'm currently halfway through Souls of the Devil. That one's going to be not a young adult. This one's a very full-on novel that's going to speak about everything that our communities doesn't talk about. The rape, the incest, the religious abuse, the narcissism in families, abortions, miscarriages, everything that, we shrug under the rug and just pretend that none of our families have these problems. I think it's about time we open the can of worms and discuss all these issues that the mainstream media seems to think that they're irrelevant, and all our communities in any part of the world are actually really, really struggling with these issues.
Yeah, wow, that's incredibly powerful. And yeah, we look forward to that when that comes out. Back to the Olive Tree, as you said, you had some offers to take that on, but they were going to traditionally publishing, but they were going to change the story, which, you've stayed true to, which is fantastic. Yes. So you did put it out yourself, but you went through a publishing company. Was it Dean Publishing? Not a publishing company, but a kind of service, I suppose, to help you with the book. What was that like? How did you find them? And what was
really, really good? They were really, really good. They were very, very professional. I think they're as good, if not better, than any traditional company. I kept all my rights. They listened attentively to all the things that I wanted done. So I was really, really happy with that. But to me, as I said, it was just about keeping the book true to what I wrote. And I wasn't interested in monetizing it or wasn't interested in the political part. And I didn't want to take it, to the religious part either. And they accepted and honored that. This is my writing and this is the way I want to do it. And I think you have a more of a hold when you pull the strings other than traditionally. Unfortunately, most of the times you don't get much of a say.
Yeah, that's it. It's kind of, I've heard someone use the term like when it goes to publication, it's not your book anymore, is what they've said.
Yes.
It's kind of you part with it. So no, that's amazing. So did they, Dean Publishing, are they local to Melbourne or they are in Australia?
No, they deal with around the world. They're a Melbourne-based company or a Victorian-based company, but they deal with publishers from all around the globe from different. I think I was the first non-fiction, but they've taken on another one or two. But they deal with all types of people from all around the world. And it's such a family-like environment. Director Suzanne, she's absolutely lovely and very supportive. And I always felt like, all my concerns were heard. So I'm very lucky that I stumbled across this company because there's a lot of cowboys in the, as you know, in the industry and a lot of scams and people have to be very, very careful with, especially if there's money involved, who to trust and who to not to trust.
That's right. Yeah, it is. So this service, did they do like editing, cover design, and did they do some promotional work as well?
So the company does a little bit of it shows you how to promote, but not full on promotional because you are self-published, so you're expected to do your own thing. But they help me get it all through all online bookshops everywhere. All the big names, and it's there now. So I can't complain. And as I do business anyway, so I sort of have the connections and know how to market the book. It's all networking. Everything unfortunately in life is networking. It's who you know.
Yeah, I agree, especially in Australia, I've found. So with going through that, was there a lot of cost involved? Were you surprised, or you thought it was quite a fair amount for, say, independent publishing?
It's not something cheap. It's something you have to budget for, but it's doable if you budget for it. And it took me a while because it needed to be budgeted for. But if you budget for it and if you really want something, you'll get it done. Yeah. I think that I always tell people, don't say I can't, but find out how can you. Everything has a solution in a way. And if you wanted something badly enough, you will put every 5 cents on top of each other to make it happen.
That's it. And like you said, there's a lot of free things you can do these days for getting yourself out there. And so that's good. I'm glad the book's been well received and you've, had the channels to market it. And it's all going so fabulously well. And I can't wait for the movie to come out. Are you going to be very involved in that? Are you going to have a cameo appearance as the author?
Oh, well, I was thinking about actually yesterday one of this. So basically it's going to be in Turkish, then we're going to dub it in English or translate it in English. Cost-wise, unfortunately, I would have loved to have it done in English, but the cost goes into the millions then, and it's, just I'm no producer or, the big producers. And then if they want to get involved again, you don't have a say. You're sort of put on the sidelines and they change a lot of it. Of course, the movie will not be identical or a replica of the Olive Tree, but the essence of the book will absolutely be the same. And I'm hoping that some people don't like to read, but when they see it as a movie, it may, touch their hearts a little bit. And I just hope that this book or movie, if it changes one person's perspective on life, then I think every cent that I spent on this is worth it.
Yeah, that's it. And have you had, obviously, the feedback from the book? Have you had messages from people who have experienced the same thing?
So many. Like hundreds of messages, literally, from people that have themselves experienced war, or they're children of migrants that they fled countries. I think one lady said to me her father died in the war, and that think that those images will never leave her her brain and her heart. And I had one older gentleman that was an ex-army veteran, and he said to me, everything that you mentioned just brings back so many memories. Look, poverty, I think in Australia we're so lucky, we've never really experienced poverty. It doesn't matter how low class economically you are way well off than people that are asylum seekers or struggling or in war-torn countries. I think this generation especially doesn't appreciate how lucky we are. I always tell my
Yeah.
kids, you are so lucky beyond belief. You have a safe country, you've got housing, you've got a free medical system.
Yeah.
I've seen people overseas die on hospital doors because they wouldn't let them in. They have no money. Like things like that. It's very unfathomable to us here, how immensely lucky we are.
Yeah, that's it. And I suppose is that the messages in the book almost as well, like you're showcasing that, and oh my goodness,
and just basically talking about us being, loving each other, loving your neighbor, regardless of the differences, and we all come down to we're all humans. I think humans have lost their humanity. We have none of it left. We're so quick to judge and hate and the prejudice for no apparent reason. Why?
Yeah, I agree.
That needs to be talked about. We can't hide behind our finger and say, all these problems don't exist in the world. They do exist.
That's right.
And the more we talk about it, the more people, start to open their eyes and see what's happening around them. I think that's how change actually happens. But we need to talk about it to let that happen.
Yeah, and also for us being in Australia, and like you said, we're lucky, very, very lucky to have so many good things. And just because we're not personally experiencing it and another country is, it doesn't mean that's not affect us later down the line, or we can't help or whatnot. So yeah,
100%.
That's it. Oh, amazing. So with, obviously you turned down the traditional representation for the olive tree. Going forward for any of your works, would you consider the traditional route, or you're just loving having the control and keeping your stories?
Really about control. If ever down the track that as I write more books, I find a morally and ethically available, this is the problem, publishing house. It's not really, to me, it's not about how much money I can make out of these books, but it's just keeping the story true to, because every writer has, it's like giving birth basically to a little baby, this book, when you've finished it.
Yes.
All your tears and thoughts and everything get in it. And then to get someone that's just, read it for a couple of hours and just want to chop this off and take it off, it's like it emotionally scars you. Do that to my little baby.
No, I get it. I think that's why writing can be so difficult for people. And my first experience of putting work out into the world, independently published a junior fiction book in my first year of uni, and I just had so much self-doubt and so much because people were starting to read it, and because it's an expression of yourself on the page, and then it is for others to judge and make opinions of you, and I think that is quite a scary thing. But if you could, like you're very brave and bold to push past all these things and just go for it. But I think obviously as well, with your experience and gone through COVID and everything, I can see why you're like, this is it, I've had enough, I'm going for my dreams, why not? Why not me?
Joanne, one marketer gave me really good advice that I'd love to share with your listeners. He said to me, once your book is out, it's no longer your book. What people, because I got one review that actually upset me, and I'm sure the person meant it's their opinion and they're entitled. You cannot put something out to the world and then be upset when someone thinks differently or doesn't like it or has another opinion. And he said to me, Mariam, when you put out a book out, people's opinion is theirs and it's no longer your book. It's for everyone to interpret it differently. Yeah. And I think from that moment on, I gave myself some room and wasn't as emotionally attached that, I've put it out from my perspective, and then you are free to think, and everyone's, life circumstances and what they've been through is different. So what I've lived through is different than what you've lived through. So your perspective on X, Y, Z will be completely different. And that's also valid. And I think we have to understand and validate that everyone's experience in life is very valid, so they can interpret it their way they like. That's without even me being upset.
Yeah, that's it. So what can we expect from Mariam in the future? Obviously, like you said, there's a film on the horizon for the olive tree, and you've got another book in the works that's coming. So yeah, what else? Anything else?
Well, writing wise, I don't know how long Souls of the Devil, because it's going to be quite a big book. It talks about so many families again, and every book I write, I base it in a different country. So I don't. So this one's based in Turkey in the 80s. It starts off there, and it brings you to reality. And as I said, it talks not just about the general rules, but it's intertwined into a very fascinating story that I think that people haven't really seen. And because it's a lot of narcissistic family, I think we're starting to open, little bits of the can of worms, and I share it a little bit on Instagram here and there. And so far, the feedback has been overwhelming just with the little snippets that I put up. I think people are over romance and sobby dramas and soapy. I think people now, especially after COVID, everyone that I took to, everyone's perspective has changed.
Yes.
You know, I think what we took for granted before, people don't anymore. And that makes me so happy that, you know, even the younger generation are going back to reading, and they want to see and hear what other people in different countries are going through.
That's right. Yeah, I agree. You know, it's one thing that did unite the world was COVID, I suppose, in its absolutely horrible way. But yeah.
Yes. That sometimes you need a big shock to get you up, because when you go down so low, there's no way only up, and you have to start rebuilding yourself step by step, because no one's going to rebuild you.
That's it. How is Melbourne now since all the pandemic?
Oh, well, we have, I think yesterday, as normal as can be. I think we still have a lot of cases. I'm hoping they never do another lockdown again. Yeah. I don't think people emotionally and psychologically can handle another lockdown. We went through a lot, I think. I think out of all the states, we had it the worst, you know, in the restrictions that we had. And the children are really affected. They're behind in schools. And it's very sad to see, but I hope, you know, together, slowly, we can start building ourselves one step at a time, and we'll get there.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And you've also got a skincare range, haven't you? And I read from your bio that, you know, COVID had a bit of an impact there, didn't it? But now is that all back on track?
I have a skincare range, and me and my sister co-founded a organic mineral makeup range as well. But for the skincare, our COVID nearly bankrupted us. I started the skincare with $169 on my kitchen table, and as it was just about to work when COVID hit, people in Melbourne were fighting over toilet paper, my dear. No one was interested in a skincare, in a mask. Where are they going to put it to go out?
Yeah,
we're locked up. So that even added more, as they say, salt to the wound. That, you know, financially we were zero, mentally we were zero. 5 kids and a husband. I think the husband's even worse than the kids. We're stuck 24 hours together in the house.
Yeah.
You know, it was just absolute nightmare. The parks were closed. You couldn't do anything. So it was very, very horrible. But as I say, in every bad thing, there's a good light. And I discovered that people were getting mask acne from wearing the mask. So that was a point of sale for me, and we just boomed.
Yeah, I've heard of that. It's absolutely horrific, and as COVID was for many people, and it devastated a lot of people. Some other people seem to thrive from it, and I guess, you know, it's a detriment to the human race that we can adapt so well, I guess. And then, you know, some businesses were able, some not so much. But are you any works in the future for writing a book on that? That would be quite a powerful story.
I think as I get a little bit, I need to get a little bit more older to gain, because I've just branched into public speaking now, and I've got an event next month in women empowerment. And I think it's very, very important that as women, that people stop labeling us as only a mother, or you can only have a career, and that's not true. You can do whatever you want and whatever's best for you. And I think that's my message now, especially to the younger generation, that even if you made the wrong choice when you're young, even if you did have kids and you thought that wasn't a good idea later on, that's okay. We can, unfortunately, can't get rid of the kids.
No,
but you can still that's a lifetime decision. But you can go back to school, you can study. Right. You know, I know a lot of people have come from, you know, families that were dysfunctional. But that doesn't mean that your life has to stay that way. Every single day you have a choice to change.
That's right.
But it's up to you to change. And I go back to us being lucky here. We're offered, you know, if you want to go back to uni, there's HECS, they can defer the fees. So I'm sorry to say, in other countries, they don't have that privilege. They don't have that. So it's never too late to change. Yeah. So hopefully when I'm a bit older, I'd love to do some sort of a bio and I had pre-COVID, I had a boutique shop that closed down, then I was scammed, and so I've been through all the circle of life, as they say. I've been through the whole wheel.
Yes, well, we look forward to all those stories and powerful speaking events from yourself in the future. Where can our listeners discover the Olive Tree and your skincare range, and also all you online and in stores?
It's available if you just type up in any major online bookstores at the Olive Tree by Mariam Al Houli, you'll find it. It's also available on Amazon Australia, Amazon overseas. If you go on Instagram at mariam.alhouli, all my bio and everything that I do is there. On my website, www.mariamalhouli.com. So, you know, you just type in my name, you'll find me somewhere. I'm around.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for sharing your powerful message with us today, Mariam. And it's so inspirational, and I know it will give hope to many, paving the way and chasing your dreams for now, which is amazing. But thank you so much for being a guest.
Thank you so much for having me, and it's an absolute pleasure speaking to you.
Thanks.
So there you have it, folks. The all-empowering words of Mariam El Houli. Her debut YA novel is a can't put down, ever so important work. So go and grab your copy now. Next time on the Hybrid Author Podcast, we have one half of the fairy godmother team who will make all of your writing dreams come true. Author and Australian writing icon, Alison Tate, talking to us about how her and Valerie Khoo's So You Want to Be a Writer book on how to get started while you still have a day job. So that's it from me. Have an amazing writing, publishing and promoting week. Bye for now. That's the end for now, authors. I hope you're further forward in your author adventure after listening, and I hope you'll listen next time. Remember to head on over to the Hybrid Author website at www.hybridauthor.com.au to get your free author pass. It's bye for now.